Hey, cellular respiration. Cellular respiration occurs in all cells, plant cells, muscle cells, bone cells. Any cell that needs energy, which is all of them, has mitochondria that take sugar, a big molecule, 6 small molecules of oxygen, and produces 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water, which are waste products. But the goal is really to make ATP, which cells can then use that ATP to do things. So, cellular respiration occurs in these mitochondria and has many steps in which during the first couple of parts you get a couple of ATP, but the last part involving the electron transport chain produces the most ATP. So, you start with a large molecule, you strip it apart systematically, and you can use some of that chemical energy to put together 36 ATP molecules. So what about ATP? Well, it's similar to a currency in that glucose is this really large sort of paycheck, right? So you have glucose as this large paycheck, this big molecule, but you need it in smaller increments. And so what the mitochondria does is similar to a bank, is it converts that large paycheck or glucose into a smaller, more usable form of energy, which would be cash or singles. So ATP is really the energy currency of cells. So glucose provides the large scale energy that gets converted into ATP in cells in the mitochondria. So what do cells need ATP for? Pretty much everything. When you move things in and out of the cell membrane, things that require energy to do that requires ATP. Muscle contraction is probably the most obvious, whether that's your heart or your skeletal muscles. And a lot of chemistry involves energy as well. So in order to get certain molecules to combine or break apart, you need to add energy, and that is supplied by ATP. So here's a little diagram of ATP. What happens is you have ADP and phosphate, and they're not together. And you use cellular respiration, the energy from glucose, to put ATP back together again. And then you break it apart, do something, do a muscle contraction, move something in and out of the cell. And so you have to add energy back to the ADP and phosphate to make ATP. So it's really a cycle. Cells use the ATP energy. Glucose provides the energy to put ATP back together again. So there's an overview again. It's in cells. It's a chemical process. The goal is to make ATP. Carbon dioxide and water are waste products. So how do our big bodies do that? Well, here's a student response in which they responded. But to break it down into a couple of more simple examples is, where does the sugar come from, the glucose? Well, that comes from your digestive system. So this part up here would be the inside of your food tube, right, where your digestive system breaks down food into glucose and other smaller substances, and that can be absorbed from your sort of food tube in your small intestine into your bloodstream. Okay? So once your sugar's in your blood, it moves right through the body. So where's the air come in, right? So you have oxygen that comes into your lungs, and this is a small sac inside of your lungs called the alveoli, where the oxygen in red here comes in and goes from the air sac into the blood. And it actually connects to the red blood cells. The carbon dioxide that's in your blood actually leaves and diffuses and goes out. So every time you take a deep breath, you're having a little oxygen go into your blood and a little carbon dioxide go out. Well, how does it get around? That's your cardiovascular system. So your heart and your blood vessels move the oxygen from the lungs to the cells, bring the carbon dioxide from the cells back to the lungs, and the digestive system provides the sugar. So on a large scale, you have the oxygen inhaled and the carbon dioxide exhaled. The sugar comes from your digestive system and enters your blood. And then inside these muscle cells, you have these tiny little mitochondria that are using glucose and oxygen to produce ATP. That ATP is used to, let's say down here, move muscle fibers and allow you to run. So what you have there is a large scale example of how your body supplies the sugar and the oxygen to do cellular respiration inside of cells and removes the carbon dioxide afterwards. So cellular respiration, it's the reason that you breathe. It's the reason that you have a heart and blood vessels. And it's one of the reasons that you have your digestive system, is to provide the sugar for the cellular respiration.